Welcome to the Quick Start video for Unit 5, focusing on iteration and using loops in coding. Here's what we'll cover. We'll introduce the learning goals and featured computer science concepts, call your attention to important preparation tasks and some additional materials that are needed for lessons B and C for using sound and movement with a microbit. The course overview guide gave a heads up about the new functionality of this unit. And finally, we'll summarize each lesson's main activity. As you listen to the rest of the video, feel free to pause it at any time to look at the unit materials in more detail, and then you can continue watching. Now, during the unit, students will understand the value of iteration in programming and looping as a form of iteration. They'll learn how and when to use repeat, while, and for loop blocks and apply their new knowledge and skills to create a unique program that uses iteration and looping as an integral part of the project. So let's talk about iteration. Iteration is when you want to do the same thing more than once. So if you've ever read the instructions on your favorite shampoo, you'll likely see the instructions to basically lather, rinse, repeat. So now computer programmers refer to this loop example as the shampoo algorithm. And so in programming, loops repeat code until a certain condition is met. So there are several different types of loop blocks in MakeCode. So you have the repeat block, and that repeats the code in the loop the number of times indicated. Now you have the while block, and that runs the code as long as the condition inside of it is true. And the for block repeats the code the indicated number of times in conjunction with a variable. And then you have the for element block. Now that's a special loop for arrays, which we're going to cover a little bit later. Now, although it's not in the loop toolbox drawer, you have the forever block, and that is what's called an infinite loop that runs as long as the program. And so the shampoo algorithm that we just looked at, that's an example of an infinite loop. Because if the program were washing its hair, it would never get out of the shower, right? Because it's lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. This basically repeats forever. Although human beings, we probably assume you just do it twice and then you get out of the shower. So the required educator preparation, your preparation is going to include the usual tasks at the unit level and then the self-explanatory tasks for the unplugged activity in Lesson A. Now, Lesson B includes 3 coding activities, and the third activity is playing sound on the microbit. So your preparation should be reviewing the tutorials to learn how to attach headphones or speakers with crocodile clips. Now, if you have the version 2 of the microbit, it has a built-in speaker, so you don't need to worry about that. But if you have an earlier microbit, the only way to hear the sound is to connect a separate set of headphones. Now, you'll also want to learn how to use copper tape or create foil circuits. This does involve some extra equipment, but it's really just some additional simple steps, right? And the sound functionality tends to really engage students. So if you just practice once or twice, you'll figure it out, and it adds a lot to the activity. Now, the additional materials are also listed, but if you have trouble finding them or if you don't have them, you can always play the sound in the MakeCode simulator without actually having to download the program to the microbit. So you can kind of decide what works best for you and your situation. Now, Lesson C is going to involve incorporating sound and motion in the project. So there are going to be some extra steps and materials needed in addition to the usual prep. So you would review the tutorials for connecting a servo motor to the microbit. The additional materials are listed, and purchasing suggestions are in the course overview guide. Again, if you have a limited number of these materials, you could just have students work in groups on the project, or if you don't have them, you can always adjust the instructions and the project scoring rubric to remove the sound and the motion expectation. So now with slide 7, we're going to be talking here about Lesson A, which is the unplugged activity. And that has your students giving you instructions to create an algorithm of the steps to walk around a chair. And you can just put the chair in the middle of the floor in the classroom and literally walk around the chair. And then we talk about looking for opportunities to use loops to shorten that pseudocode of the algorithm. Now for Lesson B, this is the first coding activity of Lesson B. Essentially, you're going to follow the step-by-step instructions to code a sprite or an LED light to kind of move around the microbit using the repeat loop. So this basically involves demonstrating the slow-mo feature in the MakeCode simulator. Now in the second coding activity, you're going to follow the step-by-step instructions and the screenshots to kind of code a traveling light with for loops. And then for the third coding activity in Lesson B, you're going to follow the instructions to code a microbit alarm with the while loop. And so at the end of the activity, you can either demonstrate how to attach headphones or speakers to the microbit, or again, if you have version 2, you don't have to worry, it already has a built-in speaker. Or you can always just play the sound in the microbit simulator in MakeCode. Now for Lesson C, the project's called Get Loopy, and for this, students will code a program using loops and variables. And they'll build an object that uses sound, display, and motion in some way. So you can use the suggested ideas, and there are a couple of examples to spark ideas. Birthday card. The Hat Man example, that has links to these short videos so that you can actually see it in action. It's worth seeing the video so you can see how this actually operates using a very clever use of servo motors to get it to display a smiley face or a frowning face. So you'll need to give yourself a little bit of additional prep time to find some of the materials for this unit, but it's totally worth it because this new functionality with the sound and in some cases the motion, it really makes this fun and creative for kids. So have fun with it and enjoy.